We're recording?
We are, I think I have my sound. Right? I don't know why I didn't hear the little voice go recording.
It's your it's closed captioning me.
Yeah, I know. That's
Only you.
good. Okay. There you go.
All right. I think we're good, Eric. Sorry about that.
We're gonna call the meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. Already start in a while. We're all here. Anyone joining online?
Nope.
All right, it's a small group this evening.
Yep.
We are going to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All
Thank you. Chair Lawson,
present.
Vice Chair Barron,
Present.
Member Butler, Member Hunt, Member Acuarty, and your ex officio this evening is Counselor Ricky Smith.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Smith, for joining us this evening. No public comment in person this evening. Anything submitted ahead of time?
Nothing submitted prior to the meeting.
Quick review, last meeting's minutes. Reminder, we did not meet in February, so in early January, we discussed a number of things. First of which was the downtown walk that we had completed late last year, 2022. We went through some of our findings from that, as well as discussed next steps, which we will get into this evening of building out a database of available properties, existing properties, things of that nature. We went through the downtown plan review for the project advisory committee, which we will also touch on that this evening. We discussed the UGB, the project advisory committee upcoming meetings as well in that process. And we will touch on that this evening as we have some updates based on the past couple meetings from that pack. And then finally, we wrapped up with some new developments in town, roll type property development, Glencoe opportunity area, etc. So I'm sure we'll touch on those as well this evening. Any questions, comments from last January's meeting minutes? I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor of approval of last month's meeting minutes, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, we are approved for January's meeting minutes. We can jump into new business, which looks like we're going to be electing chair and vice chair for this new year, 2023. As well as, just to skip ahead a little bit, we'll talk about expanding the group from 5 to potentially 7 members. So first off, chair, vice chair. We want to have just a quick discussion on those roles. If anyone is inclined or wants to volunteer as chair or vice chair, we can do so. Strong. Sure. Yeah, no problem. Great. Moving on.
So you need to take a consensus vote. Yeah.
We need consensus.
Yep.
All right. All those in favor of myself, Eric Watkins, remaining as chair of the Economic Development Committee, say aye. Aye. Excellent. All those opposed, Eric Lawson's remaining. Okay. So that's taken care of, and now vice chair. Chris, I hope you're fine if I open it up if anyone else would like to.
Okay.
I know what that means.
Need to nominate.
And I motion to nominate Chris as the vice chair for 2023. All those in favor of this motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Excellent. Quick business there.
Yes.
And then discussion in terms of moving from 5 to 7 members. I'm sure we can get into the logistics of that, but I think that would be a good idea. When we had our last opening, I know we had a couple applicants, so it might be just a matter of making sure we have 2 more volunteers to add.
So the process is, you guys would have a consensus to recommend to city council the expansion of the members of the committee.
Is anyone?
Well, I'll throw in a discussion point. So
There you go.
one thing there's probably a lot of it, though, back when
Um,
I started. Sorry, if you've been on the committee since it started, is a lot of feeling about, okay, we're so ready to get going and give us some homework, give us some stuff to do. So the only thing I would say that we're going to add a couple of members, do we feel like?
We have work to do.
Yes, exactly. Do we feel like we have enough work for all of us that we feel like we're really participating? Contributing?
It's a good one. Are we able to expand mid-year or is it an annual beginning of the year process?
Your terms all end December. It can be a mid-year. I mean, if you want to wait, it's not, it was just a discussion point, right?
Right, it was a discussion point. It's really council's purview, and if they want to do it on May 15th, they can, and if they want to do it on July 1, they can, or whatever. I think we brought it up for a couple of reasons. One, back, was it fall maybe? We had, for whatever odd reason, a succession of meetings where we didn't have many people, we didn't have enough for a quorum. Not that there was like any major decision or anything that had come up, but it made it clear that getting, 5 members, maybe we should think about more. The other issue was, in kind of looking at EDCs and other places and thinking about adding members, in other cities, EDCs have at-large members that don't have to be residents, but have some kind of expertise or stakeholder role on the EDC. And some cities have EDCs that have members that are specifically meant to be business owners. And to bring that perspective, but owning and running a business in the city of North Plains or the city where it is. So I personally sit as an at-large member of the city on the city of Cornelius's EDC, and they reviewed their charter recently, and those are the kinds of roles that they have. And so since we already kind of are in a situation where maybe talking about 5 to 7 might be a good idea, it would also be the appropriate time to say, well, if we add more, maybe there's kind of a targeted membership, a targeted member type that we should, that should be discussed.
Well, and given that, those reasons, then I would say I'm in favor of us moving that direction.
Yeah, likewise. I think it just comes down to the right people, and so. Yeah. Why not? I can think of some business owners in town that call.
Should we have someone on the committee who would represent that they are a marketing expert? I'm just kind of thinking of what's the obvious makeup.
Yeah, the other reason I think it's worthwhile to think about a business owner member is just because business owners don't vote on tax measures and don't all that fun stuff, but they do operate in the business in the city, and so not only is this body probably the best venue for that perspective, but it also kind of lends weight to what you do because you include the voice of businesses in ways that a chamber doesn't. You're an advisory body to city council in a way that the Chamber of Commerce, for instance, isn't. So anyway, things to think about.
I definitely like that angle as well, of especially how we can differentiate and add a new or a unique ability to contribute to city council and by bringing in voices of business owners. I think that's a good idea. All right, so all those in favor of expanding the EDC membership from 5 to 7, in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, say nay. All right, we are approved to expand, or at least recommend the city council the expansion of the EDC to 7 members.
And that will come about probably at the second meeting in March.
Okay.
We got a pretty full one this Monday.
Will we need a representative there?
It doesn't hurt to have a representative and just say exactly what you said, that we'd like to have some more variety and of input and that kind of stuff. So, Yep.
All right, great. We'll move into unfinished business. First off, we can just dive right into the downtown database based on the city walk. Doug, thanks for joining. We'll be able to discuss with Doug's kind of leadership on that walk, and then Lisa took the helm on the building the database. So Lisa, Bill, if you guys want to take it away, any updates with the database and whatnot?
Sure, I'll start with that. And I actually sent a spreadsheet over to Bill, the team, and Bill and
What's Lori?
Hmm?
Oh, you have a copy she has a copy as well. I didn't see if you saw CC'd her.
I think so.
I tried to put both of you on it.
Let me,
And if not, I can either just.
no, I think I do. Hold on.
I think you did.
Let me go through my 23 folders to get to it here.
Oh, you saved it. I found the email.
Oh, great. Is that
Oh.
the first one?
Yeah.
So the first
There we go.
tab here, this is a rough draft, and this
Oh, wow.
first tab here starts where the most
Make
contains
it full
the-
screen.
the
Do you?
documents I have for this. And I know we're a little limited on time, so we can put some of these, we can cover the questions and then discuss maybe next time if that we have to check a date. So we can just keep it kind of contained for the day if the topics get too long. So here are my questions, and then we'll look at at least the official data after we go through the questions. So the first question is, as I put it together, what do we want our boundaries to be of this database? And I threw out 4 options. There may be more. Well, actually, I have others. So 3 options and maybe something else. But essentially, we could do the limits of Main Street to 313, which is the library, which is something that we discussed a bit in the downtown improvement, or the downtown committee is the limits of phase 1. We could also do maybe Main all the way down to the paint store, which is before we hit Glencoe, basically the farthest boundary on the east side of or retail or commercial properties. Or we could extend just a little bit beyond Main Street and go to the post office. Which includes a few other stores as well. And I just took a screenshot of Google Maps to help a little bit if you need some reference. So that would be my first question is, hey, what do we limit this to? If we limit it down to 313, we miss a few properties, but there are also a lot of houses that we capture if we go all the way to the paint store, as I call it. So I'll keep it, unless someone has an opinion, I can keep going, but any thoughts or comments?
With the downtown revitalization work and the committee around, like, so is there a specific area that they're focusing on?
And Doug and Bill, I felt like after I left that meeting, phase 1, they're saying is 2-3-13. And then we also have some future recommendations going all the way to Glencoe. Is that fair?
That is fair to say. That's kind of this. That's really kind of the cluster center of downtown commerce. or where the focus will be.
So option one seems to be where they need to limit it there, so.
Well, I think there is one thing that we should maybe consider, like businesses like Oregon Coffee Roasters are on the other side of Maine. And it would be very important to include them, considering even if they're not like cafe, they still roast the beans, and if we have a cafe there, it will be really important to use their beans and their products to sort of keep the dollars flowing into North Plains as much as possible when people spend their money at businesses here.
So then I guess we go with the question, do we want that to be the limit? Do we go all the way to the end of Gordon where then we include the lumber? Businesses and pots, things like that.
This is a database of properties and properties that would end up being understanding what the business or property owner is doing or might want to market that way. Then my advice would be to stay narrow to the properties that may become vacant or marketable. That would be my advice. The mill is never, I mean, that I don't think you have to go that far, I guess is what I'm saying.
And I don't think there's any reason to make not to make it be exceptions, like plus the copy, for example, or something like that. Or if there's property, like I think we did even talk about a piece of land in front of the post office is potentially vacant property. So there maybe we say that's our bound, option one is our boundaries with potentially a few exceptions.
Yeah.
Which may then, we could even just throw in the paint store as one of those exceptions. And in the Rusty Piston, for example, that would also look outside those boundaries that maybe you might want to include. Okay, all right. Let's call that a decision. So option one with some exceptions for other commercial businesses outside of them. Okay, so the next tab, this is the one that I think maybe we take away and we talk about later. But in the second tab, data, this is at least my initial take of what we might want to see. And I included all the properties that initially we'll have some more to add. So I don't know if you can go to that data tab.
I
There we go.
can't look at her.
So
Go.
here's what I was able to start with, but there's a lot of help needed from the committee and thoughts needed from what are the different. Going down the column CDE, what are the different pieces of information we want to collect and gather? And there are quite a few other columns to the right there. And then how do we go about populating this information? Once we do something. So two different questions, like I said, it may be, I'll take some thoughts, but this may be a longer discussion, but I send you off with this during the month and then come back with your answers. Like you can see a lot of question marks there because I don't know these answers. And I know we got, especially from Jacqueline on that walk, a lot of information that, oh, I know who owns this, or I know some history about this. That would be really helpful maybe to include in a spreadsheet like this. But there we go.
I know, when we talked about building the spreadsheet, it could be a tool utilized for prospective businesses as well. And so, looking at it through that lens of what would new businesses want to know. So the size.
And over to, I do actually have a square footage one on there. If you scroll over a little bit. Which I think would include the size and probably the lot size as well.
Sweet.
Oh, yeah, she got lots of.
But again, I don't know this information, so it would be an effort by the committee.
Do we have that for the
populate
top?
it.
Square footage.
Would that be public information? Square footage of the building, the county level.
And we should have property owners underwater accounts.
Yeah, so we have a lot of this information in our water utility information. Some of it pretty sure is public, some of it maybe not. So I need to check, but we just adopted it recently. We adopted a new methodology for businesses to pay their transportation utility fee with their water bill. And that involved verifying or measuring the square footage of every single non-residential building in the city.
Bill did a lot of walking for several weeks.
I have those numbers is what I'm saying. But I would just need to kind of make sure, you know, what I can just throw at you and what I would kind of need to be, you know, be careful with sort of thing.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think next steps would be if you can figure out what's private and what's public and then populate it on there. And then the rest of the information that we don't have, just kind of divide and conquer as far as who can take what business and just, that way it's not one person walking around all day long. But it's really easy if you assign like two to someone who say, hey, on a Saturday, go stop by that business and just ask a couple questions. And it's only taking, you know, 20 minutes out of our weekend for the 2 hours walking around, talking to everyone.
And you can't all volunteer to go to Pilgrim's Nuts.
Oh, we can all end that.
Mhm.
I think it's tough to get a hold of some of the. Okay, so I think what I will do is ask, hey, we'll somehow share this, which is my next question. Everyone take a look at it over the next month and come back with feedback.
Great. Sweet.
Okay, so maybe just go back to my questions again. The next question, again, we don't have to solve today, but how should we maintain it?
Mm.
We need one owner, multiple owners. Where should it reside? Is Google Docs sufficient or do we need another method? And then next steps. So if we have answers to those already, fantastic, but I suspect we might not.
I think my perspective is the multiple owners is the easiest, the most efficient way to get data in there in like a shared document, like a Google Doc or something, but that leads to more inaccuracies, I would say, and people are editing at the same time. It can get messy. I don't anticipate all of us
Friday night, we're all like, hey, I'm gonna hop into the thing.
the last one. So I.
Chris is in the spreadsheet again.
Yeah.
Oh, in Google Docs, you can edit multiple people at once, so that part isn't.
Oh, you can?
But,
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
but I don't know if there are any city security issues. with
Right.
Google Doc or if that's acceptable.
If you're kind of doing it as an independent body,
Okay,
I mean.
well, that would be the easiest then. So, do you mind if can I share this with everyone after this meeting and they'll have a chance to review it this month?
Yeah.
Or you can feel free, well, I guess I'll put it out in Google Doc, it's just Excel right now, I'll create a Google Doc and just reply to maybe the meeting minutes. For just our committee, so everyone has access. Okay. All right, that is it on the database.
It looks really good.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I love some of the categories you came up with on there too. It's very comprehensive.
Yeah.
You may all have one or the
Awesome. We're gonna stick with Lisa then. We're gonna move to the downtown project advisory committee. So updates from the January 31st meeting.
All right, well, the good news is there aren't a lot of updates because it turned out to essentially just bringing back the final draft from the consultant with their recommendations, and there were honestly only a few tweaks to what we had seen previously. And Bill and Doug Gill haven't said, there were some lively discussions mostly about transportation and the sidewalks. But other than that, they basically came up with, well, this is just a recommendation. It now goes to, is it city council next or planning?
Planning commission
Okay. And when did that happen?
next week.
Okay.
Work session next week, hearing for consideration of adoption, recommendation of adoption on April 12th. I
Correct.
believe.
Mhm.
I would say, that it mostly focused on other aspects of the plan that aren't in relation to economic development. The economic development portion of the downtown improvement plan has stayed relatively the same throughout, the plan being put together. But there were some additions of terms like universal design, traffic quieting, in addition to the term traffic calming. A lot of talk about how to reduce some of the semi-truck noise on commercial. If we can't get some of the trucks diverted off the street right now, what can we do to limit that noise? So that could have some implications for maybe making a more pleasant atmosphere for people to dine outdoors and patron various businesses.
I might add on the point of traffic calming, tomorrow, March 2nd, Main Street and Commercial is now a four-way stop. So, heads up.
I believe it's blinking light, right? Isn't that what Andy said?
I think, yeah, I think, yeah.
There'll be a
it's-
blinking light
yeah.
there.
Waiting for those signs.
Yeah, and they're taking down the lighted crosswalks in exchange for this, so.
Just out of my own curiosity, what are some tools that could be implemented to take it from traffic? The first term you use versus traffic calming versus quieting.
They're not, oh, sorry.
I was just saying, what are the tools implemented to quiet it versus calm it, like forward stops?
That's a great question. So a lot of, European countries have used various forms of pavement that lower the tire noise from vehicles. Most often you might think that the noise comes from engine noise, but it actually, a lot of it, over half of the noise produced by a vehicle comes from the tire noise on the roadway. So if you have low noise pavement, it can reasonably cut down on noise emitted from semi trucks and other types of vehicles. It's just depends on which type you get. Some of them are more durable than others, and it's a question for our public works guys and like contractors to figure out. But all in all, it can have a really good impact for businesses on commercial.
I guess I should add, if you haven't seen the proposal, it is down to basically the 2 lanes with really wide sidewalks on the 2 sides for seating or pedestrians. It should slow that traffic down.
Yeah, and in addition, we also discussed lowering the speed limit on commercials 20 miles per hour from 25. So that could also have an impact on noise.
The other thing I might add is that long-term solution is to study taking freight trucks completely off of commercial at some point. So anyway, that's out there too.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it back to traffic. And that the plan is up on the PAC website. Right. Yeah. We can take a look at that. Our leisure here. Anything else downtown plan related? Any questions, comments? All right, we can move in to another PAC, the UGB expansion. Last night, we had our final meeting as a project advisory committee before giving our formal recommendation to the planning commission. I had reached out to various members in this committee, just getting a perspective, aligning on things we want to recommend to the planning commission. Ultimately, I guess the bottom line is the committee is putting forth the alternative to map that we viewed in the meeting packet with a couple of caveats. There was not a full consensus. There were 1 or 2 members of the committee that had different revisions in mind that prevented them from, I guess, debating their vote of approval of alternative 2. That now goes to the planning commission. The planning commission will give their formal, kind of tweak it, give their formal recommendation to city council. Once that's complete.
Yes, they will have a work session, and then at some point there will be a hearing to recommend adoption. And yes, so there'll be a process there.
And I don't want to spend too much time, but if we're able to pull up alternative 2 really briefly.
How about that, right?
So the few points we talked about as a committee, maintaining
This I don't know how to
nucleus for downtown, making sure it doesn't get too unbalanced with residential only out east, maintaining some northern residential as well as the large employment
Under what
plan, that's
rules?
View,
uh,
the little
tentatively
review there.
designed out east as well. We talk about
Page
it for
display.
diverting a lot of that more heavy industrial traffic and deliveries, things like that along.
Good grief, where is
those
Not
service
this one that
areas.
says full new screen.
Hey, that's the one.
Um,
Oh my god.
uh, those were just a couple of the points, and this is, I think I was mentioning to Lisa earlier, this is a pretty top level recommendation that the group was giving before it goes to a concept planning phase where it gets more in the weeds of what we might see with that specific land. So we were getting probably a little too ahead of ourselves, but it was for good reason, thinking about different scenarios and details that would come up in the planning, concept planning phase. Any specific questions based on the UGB expansion, this map in particular, anything like that? Probably lots of, again, the blue is the employment land, yellow is residential. The green outlines the study area of all possible land that could be brought in.
I might add a clarification here. It isn't exclusively residential, and it isn't exclusively commercial in the commercial areas because you can also build mixed use there. So there was a lot of conversation about buffering the school residential and having enough school children to support that school. But if you're thinking about that, the commercial areas could also house a fair amount of people, even more people. What's the cross hatching happening?
In the southwest kind of quadrant, that is excluded from that the hand is on. That's the flood, what's the correct term?
Floodplain.
Flood, yeah, floodplain. Okay. Plain was the correct, there was another term used.
Environmentally constrained.
All right,
Cannot build there.
Right.
yeah, most of the year it's, I guess, unusable from a development standpoint. So
Is
the
that the lake?
77.4 acres does not include that land. Unbuilt.
One thing actually to add on to Doug's clarification, the gold colored or the yellow colored areas aren't just residential, they include public space and parks. So for instance, the kind of amoeba up in the north, the 90.1 acres, that's currently a pond with a dam, that a lake basically, that is going to be included with a plan to have it improved in some way to be kind of the city's largest and probably what's the word I'm looking for, premier park, or kind of the main, kind of a big community park facility. So anyway, and then even though the wetlands are environmentally constrained lands, where you see the 77.4 acres, we can put trails through there, and some of it we can put park space like soccer fields or that sort of thing, that if it does flood, or we can kind of plan for it so that if it does get too wet, it's not, it's not hurting buildings or anything. Yeah, just right.
We could put a pool there.
And kind of to Bill's point, there's a lot of discussion about, up in the quote unquote lake, building a premier park there, and that was kind of my point in mentioning that all is done in the concept planning phase. It's not like we are determining we're bringing in this land because there has to be a park or a residential development, things of that nature. All right, any other UGB topics?
I would like to ask a question. In the last few meetings, I know we've talked about this being a great opportunity for our things, because we are basically the city in the area that is on the verge of having, and the only city essentially that connects the app. And since then, I did see a press release or an article about Hillsborough. And their efforts to suddenly add enormous amounts of land next to Jackson, next to Glencoe. So how is that in reality? Could they do that in a expedited process?
He loves this stuff.
Triggered him a little.
And I thought this was.
Always. No, okay, so factually speaking, yes, so on Monday, at the joint committee of the legislature, both Senate and House, there's a joint committee on semiconductor that is hearing and looking to carry out legislation to move forward all the task force's findings. Okay. Monday, finally, Hillsborough staff came forward and gave a presentation about what they would like to see the semiconductor committee do with legislation. And what they talked about mostly was the fact that ultimately they presented maps and conversation and the acreage that you talked about. They presented a plan or an intent, an ask that kind of matches up with what they said many months ago when we were meeting with them regularly. And that is, they are going to seek for economic development purposes to reverse the grand bargain rural reserves designations that were put in place by the legislature back to what the urban reserve designation that was put in place as part of the multi-city, county, and metro and state agreement. The grand bargain, it was ultimately a legislative action, an action by the legislature to take what the cities, I'm speaking objectively here, I'm trying not to characterize this in any way, but the cities in from 2008 to 2010, all the cities in Washington County, including the 5 around here, came to a conclusion about where urban reserves and rural reserves and undesignated lands should be, and then worked with the county on it, and then worked with Metro on it, and worked with the state on it. There grew from the grassroots opposition to what had happened, and the ensuing conflict over that turned into legislation that reduced in the Hillsborough area almost 2,000 acres that was designated as urban reserves for future development potentially to become rural reserves off the table for 50 years. So Hillsborough's testimony on Monday night was about this. We would like for future semiconductor related industry for those designations to be reversed. Now, it will take specific legislation to do that. And the legislation that's immediately before them right now has nothing to do with urban or rural reserves. Nothing at all. So there's a process, and that was their opening salvo in that discussion.
Can I make one comment on that?
Into the microphone, please. Thank you.
They've got a problem, 1,000 friends. That's their big problem.
I might add, Councilor Smith, that right now they very formally have a problem, an appeal problem of their industrial land need documentation actively appealed by 1,000 Friends, but that appeal has been joined by Metro itself. So both Metro and 1,000 Friends appeal has got to be worked out.
Right.
Somewhere in the village that would give the governor ability to declare. Where is that?
That's currently, Jacqueline, that's currently in Senate Bill 4 that is before the committee right now. And tonight is the final hearing on it.
I think that's a piece of legislation that's a game changer in this group of want to kind of keep our.
Yeah, absolutely. In Senate Bill 4, at the end of it, that power is bestowed upon the governor. There has been a North Plains, in a paragraph of that, North Plains is among 16 cities that are called out by name that would be the only candidate cities for anything like that to happen. If you're not on that list right now, it won't happen. There's this, Cornelius is trying to get on that list right now. But they're not on it. But that's in the bill that, the public hearing should be closed this evening. We submitted a letter of testimony about it today. And, if the hearing is closed, that bill should leave committee after tonight.
Bill, is Hillsborough on that list?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're the main driver of all this, and they're the main driver of industry, so yeah, they're definitely on the list.
And that work that's being done regarding semiconductor development, the CHIPS Act, et cetera, that was, I think the term used was they were stacking the different processes, and it wasn't essentially, the committee was not just focusing on the UGB expansion, thinking one way or the other. We weren't going to bring in essentially the 500-acre site, thinking North Plains would be awarded that site. The process we went through was, I guess, exclusive of all of that work that's being done concurrently.
That's correct. We had actually got special direction from council on this topic last month, and that was that we're going to pursue both avenues for the city at the same time. We're going to continue to, and we ended up, like you said last night at our meeting, the advisory committee landed on, with an asterisk, to recommend a map for our own expansion and our own industry need, but at the same time work through the process, lobbying the legislature for whatever shot we have at some of that. But we can't let one hinder or throw off the other, because we just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. We went over it. I think option 2 is good. The biggest thing, do we have any update? I know in the top left corner, it's marked as a semiconductor opportunity with potential. So that's still moving forward as far as folks looking at that site. Absolutely. Cool. When Eric and I were talking about this yesterday, the reason why I kind of lean towards 2 as well is looking at the top area. It had the most acreage available to essentially a business that's already looking to populate that site. So my thoughts on it were, well, if you have someone that's interested in it, wouldn't you want to give them as much as possible instead of holding out and putting opportunities in other areas that are a baby? It's like we have someone looking at that site. So I hate it to be like, hey, guess what? This works. We need 295 acres, but then we just gave them 270 and said to say, oh, never mind, we're going to go to Hillsborough. We got 300 acres over there. So that was kind of when Eric and I were talking yesterday. My 2 cents on why option 2 was just the driving factor of there's already someone looking at it. So why not give them the best opportunity possible?
Last call on UGB topic. Questions, any other comments, clarifications? It's a lot to digest, so we can.
Just procedurally after this. Thank you.
All right, we can touch on some updates really quick.
Well, I guess what I mean to say is I wanted you to let committee members have any other comments or questions, but I want to highlight a few things about next steps on the UGB procedurally for the city. Next, this goes to the planning commission. We don't know when, and they're going to be charged with hearing. They're going to be charged with considering all this and coming up with a recommendation to send the city council to adopt this map. Okay, that's their job next. But it's going to be a process, and objectively speaking, factually speaking, the 2 members of the PAC that had a problem with some of the features or had difficulties reaching consensus are on the planning commission, including the chair. So I don't know what that process is going to look like. And so the end of this, last night was not the end of the EDC needing to step up and advocate for a perspective, I guess is what I'm saying. So when the time comes, we'll let you know, but I guess what I would ask is, you may not be aware, but this committee was established by City Council with the express purpose of advising council on economic opportunities analysis, land need, and amending the UGB. So actually, that's kind of like your first charge, believe it or not. I don't know if you know the history of the committee. But there was going to be an opportunity for you all to kind of have steps in the process of bringing a perspective to all that. And then at City Council time too. So stay tuned and be ready.
So what Bill is trying to say,
Okay.
we should all be at that meeting to advocate for the consensus we came to as a group.
We should have an expectation that city, the broader decision-making body, city council is taking all perspectives in mind. I think that should be our expectation.
Let's see, there was one other thing about that, about the UGB. Oh, sorry. Eric alluded to it, but correct. We have the next phase of this, which is technically supposed to start in July. So there's some time off, but it's related. So I'll point it out. The next phase of all this after the Planning Commission and even City Council considers the map. We will be working with ODOT and a consultant team to concept plan everything, to dig into those details. Eric mentioned that would be the next phase. We are most certainly going to have some kind of technical or project advisory committee for that process. So a time is going to come when you may nominate Eric to serve again, or Eric might say, get away from me, never again, after that first process. Who knows? But that'll be a next opportunity as a body to send a representative to, work on a process as a committee. So an ad hoc committee.
And in the grand scheme of things with this UGB expansion, this is really just the beginning. Like, it's going to pick up.
A lot going on. It's exciting times,
Mm-hmm.
very exciting, exciting to be part of this group. And we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Just some quick updates. I wanted to follow up on, just so we're all in the know. I think we like kind of being kept up to speed on different developments through the city, and Bill, you keep us up to date and add your wisdom, and we're able to pass that on to anyone who might be interested in the community. So just a few different properties and updates. The Red House, I know we touched on last meeting, that was back in January. Just seeing what the status was on that it's sold, unsold.
The Red House is, to my knowledge, not sold yet. The property is still an important part of the downtown plan because council hasn't decided yet to for sure build City Hall on one side of the street or the other. But as soon as there's like a solid update to give all.
And then Roll Tide property looks like it's kind of being buttoned up. I know there was a few different tenants that were being announced.
Yeah, so in your agenda packet, I think you saw a grant program description.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of things about that. So we're going to have council review that and kind of give their stamp pretty soon. Because it's a new program. It's based on programs in Beaverton and Hillsborough that have been very successful at helping businesses move into space where there were some extraordinary costs to put in kitchen stuff or what have you. And so that program will roll out quickly, but I have to say it is in response or in anticipation of a business who wants to build some kitchen equipment in a Roll Tide, part of the Roll Tide building. And they've shared their cost numbers, and it's, so the URA has the opportunity with some funds they've budgeted for that sort of thing to make it kind of more of a formal program rather than a, subjective thing. And so it's also the opportunity that if the process works through and that business applies and so on and so forth, the city has helped put permanent kitchen facilities into a building. So even if that business doesn't succeed, there's kitchen and, kitchen equipment, grill, hood, all that invested in the space. And so it's easy for another restaurant to try being in there. And so there's kind of this perpetual space that the city has for restaurant food service. So that's the idea. But we do have somebody who's looking at the Roll Tide building that potentially would apply for that sort of thing. As far as job to do for this committee, Andy and I are looking to, I want to just kind of get an impression if you're interested or not, but we're looking to recommend to council that when somebody applies for a grant, we don't expect a ton because there's not a ton of businesses. There are business spaces. But if somebody does apply for a grant, that they come before this body, introduce themselves, talk about their application, what they hope to contribute to the community, and then you all give a recommendation about whether or not they should get the grant.
All right. I like it.
Then that would apply within the urban renewal district, which is basically all of commercial. Excuse me, all of Glencoe and all of commercial. Okay, so, and the other thing, we're looking at tweaking or adding some benefits. Right now, the program, the way it's written, and we're looking at tweaking this, it's a 50% matching grant. So if kitchen equipment costs $100,000 above and beyond what a property owner would, let's say a restaurant wants to move into Roll Tide, and the cost of putting in the walls and the special floors and all the tenant improvements, typically a property owner, a landlord will give a certain amount of tenant improvements and put that in the rent. Okay. But if there are some extraordinary investments like kitchen equipment and hood and all of that, that goes all above and beyond what a landlord is able to grant. That's the stuff that this grant program with the URA would help with, the extraordinary costs. And let's say the extraordinary cost of putting in a hood and kitchen and kitchen equipment is $100,000 total. This grant we would have to see all of that and have bids to prove the cost out competitively. But the way this grant program would work is they could apply for half of it, but they would have to match half. So we could give them up to $50,000, but they would have to spend out of their own pocket the other 50 on the extraordinary costs. Chris,
How are you planning to manage the distribution through the grant?
we'll just work with the business directly after expenses are made. Good question. So, but anyway, that's how it works. But what we're looking at doing is tweaking it so that perhaps if you're a resident of North Plains and you want to open a restaurant or something with food service, it might be up to 60% matching. So if it's $100,000 total extraordinary cost, you would only put up 40 as a resident and get 60 out of the city, maybe, or something along those lines. And then the other one we're looking at is similarly, if you're looking at doing something in downtown, the match is higher to make it less expensive for people to move to downtown and let Glencoe be the only 50% match, something like that. So those will be tweaked and finalized.
Excited. Yeah, I'm a big fan. We talked about different incentives for bringing new businesses, and I think this is a perfect example. Thanks, Bill. Last couple items, the Pilgrim's Nuts opened downtown district. Don't know if anyone's had a chance to swing through there yet.
We went to the opening.
Yeah, very nice.
See that? I even wear my badge.
Good job. Good job. Thank you.
It looks like they're up and running, and it's a nice addition to downtown, and it visually looks very nice, and they seem to be, great tenants and additions to downtown. So cool. Last update, Glencoe Opportunity Area. If there is any updates changes to that development?
Yes, there are updates. Number one, there was a Facebook community post, community Facebook group post last night that someone said that the project was dead and the developer moved on. That is absolutely not true. I don't know how everybody's getting their news, but that is not the case.
You gotta love social media.
Yeah, but I just want to state clearly, the project is still very much alive. There just hasn't been much public announcement about it. So tomorrow, Andy and I will be having a Zoom to look over the revised plan for the project. The developer let us know in December that they were going to reform their team a bit because the existing team that they had were not getting a handle on dealing with some of the many construction costs that have been skyrocketing. So they've reformed their team and they now have a plan in place that has far better handle of some of the costs that they just couldn't get at with their previous formation. They actually have the plans to the point where now they're going to let us take a look, give them feedback or review, and then they're going to go out to bid for a general contractor. I mean, they're ready to move through, and they did report that they've put at least $500,000 into it already. So they're committed. They're not walking away from that. We didn't think they would be, but they're not walking away from it.
Okay, were they doing tree removal this past week?
No, we've just had that company has just been storing trucks there. And we've let them, they kind of gave us the ask and we said yes.
As a small update from the city too. Bill, you mind if I tell them about the bus stop thing that's going on?
Definitely, it's downtown transportation improvements. I'll go for it.
Okay, so Washington County has had some funds allocated for rural transit stop improvements, and they have come to North Plains to give us some of those funds to upgrade our 2 bus stops in town. The bus shelter in front of the senior center would get completely replaced. And the bus stop, I don't know, it's hard to even know that there's a bus stop at Pacific in Glencoe, but have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is that little bum board taped to a speed limit sign. It's a very sad bus stop, but it's going to be replaced with a concrete pad behind the sidewalk. That's city right of way, and they're gonna put a bench there. And an actual sign with route information, stop information that says bus stop on it, not attached to the speed limit sign. And this will be completely paid for by the county. So that will be going before city council on the March 20th meeting. And that IGA will be reviewed by them and we'll see what happens.
Doug has worked a lot on that lately, so he deserves a lot of credit for marshaling and juggling, or no, herding cats, I think is the expression. So nicely done, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. All right, that's about it for unfinished business, ongoing business. In the packet, there's land use application index there, as well as the community development monthly staff report for February as well. Any other topics, comments, questions from the group?
Is there any plan in development for that house they just demolished?
I don't, there hasn't been any sort of plan submitted. The fact is they didn't even have a permit to demolish and we had to go through that with them. Yeah.
Talk about herding cats. That was something.
Happened fast.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have one topic. Last year, when we had the annual cleanup day in May, I had at least thrown out the idea of, hey, as a committee, could we do some kind of project? And so I'm gonna throw out the idea again, specifically maybe focusing on downtown on that day, where we could at least say, if you'd like to volunteer to help with this project, show up on cleanup day from 10 to 12, whatever it is. So I'd like to propose that, and I'd be willing to spearhead that. I just don't know what the project would be and how to get it momentum and how to get it organized, but I at least want to propose the idea if they or other committees who are supportive of that.
We don't, I know we have a group that actually contacted me. It's a church group in town that wanted to spend it. They said, we have a day, we want to spend it volunteering around town. They asked for projects. So Andy and I kind of put our heads together and came up with the areas in front of the murals. It's spring. I think they're gonna do it in April. That's an area that I took on last year myself. Every Friday I was out there because I just wanted to be outside, and Fridays are my quiet days. So, but it'll be nice to have a jump on it before spring is done. The other one of the other areas was by the North Plains sign as you come in on Glencoe. There's not a lot there, but clean up the area, maybe even plant some bulbs or something so you get some color, you know, or whatever. But those were the kind of projects they were looking for. And so if that's what you're considering, then we kind of have a little short working list of things that we don't like. The community garden kind of needs to be cleaned up. Public Works doesn't have the time to do it right now. They're so busy with everything else. And so that was another big one. But we went for the murals just because we thought it was good timing with spring. So
The only other one, and if this is feasible, that would, it'd be great, and I'd like the garden idea. I was trying to think of something like business related on downtown, and the other one I thought of is, I know the rusty pitches have been sold. And I understand there might be potential to reach out to those owners and maybe at least offer some help if they have any projects that they like. So, any thoughts?
So I actually was with Steve when we had a meeting with them about their application. They are very nice people, and I'm sure they would be very receptive towards our offerings. They've been in the area for a long time, and they're going to be a great addition.
So that would be the one I was into, being a business and local,
We could do some work out there and update our spreadsheet in the comment section.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that idea. Idea of an on road with this thing. I mean, that's right in the Bowles area. Yeah.
all right, well, maybe I'll contact either Declan or Doug and see about
You
contacting.
envision it in kind of spring, summer.
Well, I think May, the first Saturday in May is the.
City cleanup day.
Yeah. Would that make sense to do it?
It does make sense to do it in coordination with that.
Okay.
Yep. I think.
All right, well, I'll see what I can find out.
You just know.
It was like a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
You would contact them. If you're looking for someone,
Okay, that would be great. Yes, please.
or if you need help.
Yeah, I don't have their contact info. They just kind of came in for a meeting. But yeah, you might actually be the better point of contact on that.
That one really awesome. Thank you for making that.
Oh, and maybe we can get something in the newsletter. Maybe it's great, but before me.
She does.
Okay, all right.
I know.
Kathy and Jim Fish.
No, we don't do gold stars. These are monthly meetings, but Lisa is.
You are rocking it. Yep.
Employee of the month.
Like a plan.
We'll get you mine. Put it in the notes. You can take the gavel home. That's gonna be your new privilege. Let's do that. You can serve it at the meeting. Take the gavel home with you. Anything else? Top of mind? Bill?
Yes.
Something?
Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm gonna- Back to me being serious. So, March 1st officially marks the beginning of budget season.
Well aware.
And yes, and we're going down the path of planning for the next biennial budget, 2023 to the 2023-2025 biennial budget. This committee has one member that was on the local option levy work group, and this committee also now has two members who are formerly on the city budget committee, Lisa and Chris. So I want to put it out to the chair that at the April meeting, we have a bit of a business oriented meeting for a few different reasons. Number one, city council allocated ARPA dollars to economic development, and there is the plan for an allocation of that to go to this committee to plan some things, and I'll get to that. There's also, and has been, money allocated in the budget for an economic development strategy, still in there. So between now and June 30th, we kind of have some money that's budgeted. It doesn't have to be spent on things, but there's money in there to look at initiating some things. And then you all as a body now have two people on this committee who will be in the budget committee process to highlight, chime in, advocate for, economic community development funding. And this is a particularly important budget season because council voted to send a local option levy to the ballot for May 16th. And that levy, if approved by voters on May 16th, will generate a lot of money to make overnight police coverage a guaranteed thing every day. Okay. It also reduces the dependence of police coverage on the general fund. It kind of shifts how the city is funding police coverage as well. So if the levy passes, all of a sudden the water fund isn't help paying for general fund expenditures, and that kind of creates the capacity for the city to, if the levies pass, for the city to kind of look at taking on some new efforts. So I would suggest, Chair, that at the April meeting, and I'll work with you on setting it up, but kind of a work plan and budgeting conversation would be very timely.
Okay. Is it worth carving out a bit of an extended meeting for that conversation?
I guess I would say that if it's you could be efficient with it in 30 minutes. You could take the whole hour. Like, for instance, Mary Bosch submitted to me a proposal to kind of do a workshop or two with city council to kind of talk about working with the two bodies to kind of give you all more of a to-do charge. Kind of elaborate on your role and kind of set you off on some different things. She gave me a quote for that. Well, do you all want to take it on? What's the budget for it? Is that part of the allocation that we know you have? Those things. So at least 30 minutes. But I don't know if you want to do the whole hour, but at least 30 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, I think we would be fine. Just a normal meeting timeline with some of the PAC updates and requirements kind of subsiding for at least a couple months. So, okay, that sounds great. Something to look forward to. All right. Anything else? We go to the home. All right.
Which one asked me a question?
I was just gonna say, you got anything for us?
Not sure how much you guys are aware of the 60th anniversary of the city's going out. I did with the ice cream social. Stays involved, North Plain Event Association. Not sure what a band, there's gonna be a band there. Not sure if that's been tied down yet.
I think it has. And
gonna be a
it's,
good band.
it's a good band. It's one that everybody should know, like, if you've been in this area for a while, so.
Not sure. I should announce what a band it is.
I wouldn't yet,
I wouldn't,
but it's a good band.
it's gonna be really good. Which means there could be. When you would shut the tree down, it could be. Passive. I'm not sure. We're gonna have probably some businesses get involved with it. I know the mayor's talked to a couple people. Not sure how much you can play a part of it. I think there's something. that can
That's
be
June
done.
1st.
June first
Mhm.
is the events committee, the body we should try to reach out to.
NEPA is planning it. Mhm. Along with, well, Terry's part of NEPA, so Mayor Lenahan is part of
I have
NEPA, so.
contact there too.
Ricky's wife is the volunteer coordinator. So, yeah.
I have a contact there. Second major one, state of the city. Nice, to have a good showing. Sure. I'm going to show the last year report.
I think that goes, sir.
They actually,
Double gap.
yeah, they have a thing where they would like you to RSVP so that they kind of have an idea, because I think they provide some refreshments and stuff, right?
Thursday, March 23rd.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's usually goodies there, but
6 p.m.
I'm not sure if it's a big
Here.
dinner, it's just hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a dinner or anything, but
We'll look into that, because I think that was his the spot that was bringing food to that last time, wasn't it?
probably, yeah.
Yeah, so Councilor Smith, yeah, I think we'll try to have some kind of food again. I don't know who it'll be, but
Then the third one is April 13th. Used to be called the spaghetti volunteer team. But we're making, well, the North Plains Event Association is making some big changes there.
I've never heard
It's going to be called oodles and noodles. There'll be spaghetti. And instead of listing 1,000 volunteer winners, stuff like in last year, I think there's gonna be just 2 lists.
okay.
So I think it'd be nice to have,
Representation,
yeah,
Plus, free food.
oodles and noodles.
Mhm.
Yes.
that was Stewart's like.
Nice.
Okay,
I think that's it unless you got questions.
Those are all good dates, events for us to get to as many as we can. And that along with just volunteering, getting out as much as a group. Some, especially as the weather gets nicer.
wear your badges,
For our
Huh?
veterans.
wear your badges.
I just want to thank Stuart, Reggie, sorry, you said Stuart. That 60th anniversary event is going to be very important. I have been in talks with Patty and Terry as well about sort of the logistics for that, and I think the city is going to have some sort of part in it in terms of not only are the events hosted, but we're going to have an exhibit about the downtown plan and sort of use part of that event as an opportunity to showcase the future, the vision for North Plains, to be directly across the street from the Historical Society's showcase about the history of North Plains, and it would be a nice contrast. And I think the Economic Development Committee could definitely play a role in showing what kind of vision they want for North Plains. Part of that event.
If you need business involvement with that, I can talk to your camera. They get involved with the festival.
Mhm.
That would be wonderful, yeah.
good stuff coming. Gonna be good weather.
Is that a promise?
Careful what you say on that one.
Thank you, Counselor Smith, for being here, for those notes. I think we're all set. We'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned, 7:21 PM.